Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly, and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. Today's video, we're going to be diving into some of the recent analysis that we've seen across the market. We're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin, analyzing some really important details that have happened with a major breakout of a very important level that we're watching. On top of that, we're going to be diving into the Bitcoin dominance, taking a look at what this means for the altcoins moving forward. And then we're going to be diving into two of the strongest looking altcoins over the last couple weeks that I expect to be some of the big rally leaders over the next couple months and really cement themselves as being some of the top gainers over this cryptocurrency bull run. There's so many great things happening right now. Some of the most bullish scenarios that could have possibly played out are playing out right now, and this perfectly shows why we're about to see the biggest altcoin run in this entire cycle and why all of the altcoin holders are about to set themselves up for life-changing opportunities. If you're new and just finding this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Always remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos like the one provided for you here. And make sure you guys check out and sign up to the Discord server of over 21,000 members and growing. This is where you're going to be able to see all of the rest of my community, share your own thoughts on the market. Links are in the description for the people that want to sign up. On top of that, if you guys want to download my free ebook, this is a beginner's guide that's going to teach you guys a lot more of the fundamental understandings on how to be profitable inside of these markets, which is why I've made it free to download. Links are provided for you in the description. And with all that being said, guys, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so to start off this video, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin. We're going to be analyzing some thoughts and perspectives here because Bitcoin has done something that was really important that I've been watching and I've been sharing with you guys for a little while now. Now, what I've been telling you guys about was really just this major bearish divergence that was forming. I said that with us approaching right under resistance and with this big of a bearish divergence that's forming on the RSI, generally speaking, you're going to see a correction. But in fact, we actually broke outside of that descending resistance on the RSI. We can see that the RSI has actually broken out, that momentum indicator has broken outside of this resistance as the prices continue to break up bullish. So this is actually the most bullish scenario that could have possibly happened for Bitcoin. This basically means that the big correction that I was watching for all the way back down to, about 40K is a lot less likely than it was before. Whenever you see this type of a bearish divergence, it often spells a pretty decent sized correction. But since we've broken outside of that, it actually looks a lot less weak than it did before. And so obviously the next resistance that we have is going to be up here at about 59K, down here to about 55K, about right there. This is going to be the next resistance that we're going to be watching for. Now that we actually broke out of this, I do believe that this next one is going to hit rather quickly. We'll probably get a quick impulse. It's not going to take very long to get up to this range. And from here, do I think that we can break it in the first try? Well, at this point, Bitcoin has pretty much defied all of our biggest expectations. It's done better than most people assumed, myself included, which is kind of hard to understand considering the fact we know how bullish Bitcoin is. And with us gearing up for the final rally in the cycle, we all kind of knew that this was going to be the big one, the one that made the least amount of sense, the most euphoric one. And I do believe that Bitcoin is ultimately just proving this thesis more and more as the days go by. Now, if we do get this impulse, I do think that we're going to see some type of a pullback. Now, is it likely that we're going to see the pullback all the way back down to about 40 to 42K? I think it's less likely than it was before, mainly because of the fact the RSI broke bullish. Since the RSI broke bullish, this shows that there's a lot more bullish momentum still inside of this market. And this entire move here was us just accumulating. It really wasn't anything too bearish unless the RSI would have continued to held below resistance, which it didn't. It actually broke bullish along with the price. And so what this tells me is this is most likely just going to continue to paint higher highs, higher lows. We could definitely pull back to about the 48, maybe even potentially down to about this 46 level. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this. Low end, I think that it's more likely that if we do get a big correction, I think it's more likely that we'd end up coming back down and retesting somewhere around 43. I wouldn't be surprised to see something kind of like this where we get this quick move into resistance After this move, we get a rejection back down, and we could end up dropping a lot lower than most people think. Do I think that we're going to end up falling all the way back down to the low 40s, specifically about 42 to 40,000? I think that that's a lot less likely, and I think it would show a lot more weakness if that was the case. The most bearish scenario that I want to see moving forward from here, since we did get the bullish break upwards, would be a low of about 43.5 to potentially 44,000. That's kind of what I'm going to be watching for. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a short-term blow off top before we consolidate and then we go up much higher in this cycle. And I'll share with you guys kind of why I think that this specific scenario could play out and how some of the altcoins are kind of resembling this exact pattern, and why if we end up going up to about 59K to 55K, a lot of altcoins would be at one of their major resistance points. But the point of this cycle, guys, this really is the most delusional phase where we could see Bitcoin have a lot shorter pullbacks. Maybe we only fall back to here, and then we start going up more bullish again. These are all scenarios that we need to watch out for. For me, I never was too worried about which direction Bitcoin went, whether we came up here, topped out at 43K and back down, or whether it was 48, or now that we've actually even broke more bullish than both of those scenarios up here to 59. It never really mattered that much to me because of how much of my portfolio was already invested into crypto, as I'm sure most of you guys can relate to that as well. I've been holding throughout the dips. I haven't been worried about being in and out of the market, and so timing all of the short-term stuff really isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is just having a solid foundation, having a lot of positions that you've been accumulating, and then sticking to your plan, which, as you guys have been following this channel, has always been the end of the year. This is our main focus here. The short-term price action, I don't consider myself some excellent day trader because I don't hardly even do day trading. All I'm really focused on is the bigger term macro moves. And so on the shorter time frames, whether we end up going up for a quick impulse and then we end up having a decent sized sell-off, or whether we just have short-term pullbacks all the way up, it doesn't necessarily matter in the big scheme of things. And what we should really be focused on is really just this end of the year threshold. We all know that Bitcoin is going to have the biggest rally inside of this cycle coming up right now. And so whether we see a little bit of a correction down in here or whether we don't, it doesn't necessarily matter that much, just simply because of the fact, long-term, end of the year, we're going to see Bitcoin above 200K, in my opinion. I personally have had the target of 250,000 since all the way back in 2018. This is kind of just the number I've always had. If you've been watching my channel since then, which most of you guys probably haven't, this is kind of the target that I've had in my head. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily matter. We're not selling based off of the price alone. We're selling off of the time frames. But I believe end of the year, we're going to see such a big rise in price that if we do manage to get a correction somewhere in here, whether it's 10, 20, 30%, I think that we should do everything that we can to accumulate those. I do have some cash on the sidelines for if we do get a decent sized dip inside the market. I'm going to do my part and just buy that with whatever I can. But the majority of my portfolio, being 97%, is literally just sitting here long term, as I'm just long holding this entire move. And so if you guys do see a correction in here, the best thing to do is just be able to accumulate that, find great opportunities, find the best performing altcoins, maybe some lower cap cryptos that you're excited about, and then accumulate those, because I think that those are going to be great opportunities as we rally up into this final move. Because here's the thing, guys. We might not even get a major pullback, being, maybe 20, 30%, until we flip the all-time highs and get something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up seeing something along the lines of that, where we might see little tiny pullbacks in between, nothing too crazy, just like this little red candle is in here. But we might not see a big pullback of 30% or so until we start getting past the all-time highs. And so you guys got to prepare yourself that if this is the case and this is something that we end up seeing, you're not going to end up just sitting out. You're not going to end up, feeling left out because of the fact you've been waiting for this dip. That dip never came, or at least it came later than you were expecting, because we do see these dips all the time. And so it is always good to have somewhat of a cash support waiting on the sidelines, ready to buy when those opportunities come. Because if we see a 20 to 30% pullback inside of Bitcoin, that means the altcoins are going to bleed even more, which at this point in the bull cycle will provide great opportunities to get back in. And so because Bitcoin on the shorter time frames has actually broken more bullish, I do believe that this is really more sign for continuation from here. We've just accumulated sideways. Now that we're breaking out, We're actually seeing a lot more bullish sentiment than before. The RSI is looking super, super strong here with this breakout. And so I think it's likely that the next move is going to be up here towards 59K. From here, I would expect that we'd see some type of a sell-off. This is a pretty major resistance. But, you know, I said the same thing down here, and we never really saw anything too crazy. So at this point in the cycle, the best thing to do is continue to focus on the long term. If you have a bunch of cash sitting on the sidelines, that's, you know, a big portion of your portfolio. Maybe you ended up panic selling a little bit down here. Maybe you withdrew cash from your bank to actually come over here and buy more crypto. Well, obviously you want to wait for some type of a correction. I always think that's the smartest thing. But if your ultimate end goal is the end of the year and you don't necessarily care so much about these short-term corrections, you know, getting in, finding the cryptos that you want to hold, there's still plenty of altcoins that are fairly undervalued. You can still make a good opportunity by doing that as well. And so I've personally been a little bit more conservative with my approach because I did accumulate about 5 different altcoins throughout this period of time, all of which are in great profit. Like I said, the biggest majority of my portfolio is already in the long-term hold, so there's nothing really more I can do with that besides wait until the end of the year before I sell. And so with my short-term cash stack, when I was seeing this big of a bearish divergence, it made me a lot more skeptical, and it made me feel as if I should be a little bit more patient. But now that we've got the breakout of this, it's caused me to rethink my plan. It's caused me to think a little bit more outside the box. And what I do believe is that we're going to be rallying up quickly up to this level. And if we do manage to get a pullback in that level, I'm going to do my part by just kind of jumping back in. If we end up coming all the way back down lower, maybe towards 44,000, I'm going to continue to buy because I have cash. I'm going to be continuing to ladder into new positions as we go lower, you know, but at this point, now that we have kind of confirmed that this bearish thesis is no longer accurate, it's time to rethink the plan. And this is kind of what I'm personally structuring my plan towards. Now, let's actually dive into the ETH chart because ETH itself is looking exceptionally bullish on the shorter time frames. Ethereum had a nice breakout outside of this little ascending triangle formation. And if we actually see here on the shorter time frames, we're actually forming some hidden bullish divergence. Whenever you see the RSI make a lower low, but the price itself makes a higher high, this is what's known as bullish divergence. When the RSI momentum goes lower low, that shows that it's becoming increasingly more oversold. Now, whenever the price is making a higher high, that shows that there's divergence right here. Now, because this is a hidden bullish divergence, it means that it's happening on a shorter time frame, right? We're seeing this on the 4-hour. We're seeing a higher high in price, and we're seeing a lower low on the RSI. And so what that tells me is that Ethereum is actually a lot more bullish than Bitcoin is in the short term, which has been the case up to this point. Now, where I personally believe that ETH is going to be heading next is going to be up here at about 42,000. Approximately. Just slightly under is actually the resistance, and it's pretty much right there with the all-time highs. We do have a wick up here to about 44,000, or 4,400, excuse me. Remember, I'm at 4,200, not 42,000. Bitcoin and ETH are confusing me at this point. But I do believe that we're going to get another quick impulse up to this level. Now, it would be really exceptional if we could break from that level. We're going to watch and see exactly what's going to end up taking place. But when we take the time to just zoom out, guys, ETH has had a strong rally up. We're now getting close to breaking those all-time highs. With this being the final rally in the cycle, I really wouldn't be surprised if this thing just continues to take off like it has. I mean, it's really not that far different from what we saw all the way back down in here. Once ETH started taking off, it pretty much just went vertical. There was very few pullbacks. Pullbacks were immediately bought back up, and we just pretty much saw vertical price action. So now with this being the final rally in the cycle, we should expect to continue to see more of the same. And thus far, it hasn't disappointed. We've seen even fewer pullbacks inside of this rally, and on the shorter time frames, it's still looking even more bullish. And so I do believe that we're going to continue to see ETH ultimately lead the majority of the altcoins, specifically Bitcoin. We're going to continue to see outperform Bitcoin as we close out the end of the year. And so really, I think the most value is going to be made inside of these altcoins. And ETH is really showing the way and leading the way for the rest of the altcoins to follow. Now, when we take a time to come over here and take a look at the actual Bitcoin dominance, we are getting even more downside price action. If we drop this to a shorter time frames, I do believe that we could be in for a bounce here. Right here, as Bitcoin ultimately rallies up to 59K, has a quick impulse, I do think that we could see a short-term pullback inside of the altcoin market cap, specifically the Bitcoin dominance starting to rise up a little bit. We could see it come all the way back up, approximately to 44, almost 45%. I wouldn't be surprised to see a quick little bounce, but I would want to see even more downside continuation from here. We want to continue to see the altcoins rally. I think that that's going to be the case ultimately. Now, some scenario that I do see fit right now for Bitcoin is if Bitcoin rallies up kind of hard and we go up to this 59K, I would expect some outperformance in the short term, especially with a big break of this descending resistance on the RSI. That shows that there's going to be a lot more momentum, specifically bullish momentum, stepping back into Bitcoin's market. And so many of the altcoins have already pumped really hard off the lows. They've already broken out of this specific range that they were accumulating in. Now that Bitcoin's just barely beginning to do the same, I think it's a little bit more likely we do see a short-term bounce in the Bitcoin dominance. And so something to pay attention for, if we do get a bigger rise inside of the Bitcoin dominance, what we want to see for the altcoin specifically, bearish scenario is Bitcoin rallies up to 59K, outperforms the altcoins, and then we have a pullback here, and then Bitcoin continues to outperform the altcoins inside of that pullback. That's how we could see a much bigger rally inside of the Bitcoin dominance. But with this downtrend being what it is thus far, I think it's a little bit more likely we're going to get short-term bearish continuation, which in my opinion would basically mean Bitcoin rallies up here to 59K. Maybe we make a short-term correction, but regardless, I think we're going to continue to uptrend. And when that happens, we should continue to expect to see altcoins outperform. We are at that point in the cycle. We have seen a consistent downtrend inside of the Bitcoin dominance for an extended period of time. This to me just doesn't necessarily look like it's completed. It looks like it's going to need a little bit more downside potential before we actually get anywhere close to that. We are approaching the all-time lows, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens at these lows, whether we get another bounce, whether we get a much bigger bounce than we've seen up to this point, or ultimately whether we can actually come below this and start making this previous all-time low here sitting at about 36% dominance. If we can come under this and let this become resistance, that's going to be a very, very good sign overall, because that's literally just going to spell the biggest alt season that we've ever seen, which is kind of the one that I'm leaning towards. I see a lot of FBTC. I see a lot of BTC altcoin pairs that are just looking exceptionally bullish, specifically with Ethereum, specifically with XRP. Even Chainlink looks amazing. And so it is more likely to me that we're going to continue to see this downtrend, which is exactly what we want, right? We're all altcoin holders. The majority of us probably hold majority of our altcoin inside of the majority of us probably hold altcoins as our heavier position compared to Bitcoin, especially at this point in the cycle. And so because of that, we all really want to see this make a new low, which ultimately my target is going to be about 20 to 10% dominance. That's what I think we're going to end up topping at the end of this year. And so thus far, everything is kind of following to plan. Everything looks really good. Now, let's actually talk about Chainlink today. This is going to be the last altcoin that we actually cover aside from Ethereum, because this one's had an exceptional rally over the last 24 hours. We're seeing a lot of bullish price action happening inside of Chainlink, which is really solid because if you guys remember, Chainlink was kind of the leader of this alt season from the very beginning of the cycle, all the way back down in here. Bitcoin bottomed at 20 or 3,200, and then when we rallied up to 14K, Chainlink made this massive move into price discovery. Chainlink went from approximately 42 cents up here to about $4.80, and so big 10x, 12x type move. And from that point, Chainlink was really leading the market for a long time. We accumulated above the previous all-time highs. We made another big impulse after that. Another short-term correction, and we were literally just kind of leading the majority of the market up until about this point here. The last year of Chainlink's price action has been pretty subpar when you compare it to the rest of the markets, but at the same time, Chainlink was already outperforming the rest of the markets way, way, way before any of them have even started breaking out. And so now that we're at this point, we got this massive shakeout inside of Chainlink, one of the bigger shakeouts out of any of the altcoins inside of that cycle, which from the high to the low, was 75%. It was a very big shakeout happening inside of Chainlink. And so with that type of a sell-off, a lot of people got shaken out. I saw a lot of people getting out of Chainlink right here. A lot of people that have pretty much been nothing but Chainlink bulls throughout this entire history of time. And they actually got out of the market. And I saw that happen right before this pump. And so it's kind of funny how that's actually the case. They capitulated, but this itself is a short-term example of a market cycle. We have this big rally up. We have the top. This is the big crash, capitulation, anger, depression. Then we have our first higher high. This is the disbelief phase. And now we're breaking out from that. And so this is pretty much just confirmed all of the most bullish expectations. We could see a little bit of a pullback back down to this level, down to about $30. this level here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pullback to here, but regardless, I do think that Link is going to continue to outperform and continue to lead the rest of the market, because when we take a time to look over here at the actual Bitcoin pair, this thing looks really bullish, and it's actually looking like this is kind of leaving the end of the accumulation range for Chainlink against Bitcoin. So if we come over here and we actually draw a new trend line, we can see that Link itself, it did have a decent size impulse off the lows. Now, most people wouldn't necessarily consider this a very big impulse, just because of the fact it happened after a big crash and we've mainly just gone sideways. But this itself is mainly just accumulation after a big sell-off. We had this big sustained uptrend, blow off top, we came back down, probably had about a 70 to 80% correction in here, and now we're just kind of going sideways inside of this chop. This to me right here reminds me a lot of what we saw with ETH when it was at $200, Bitcoin when it was at $200 inside of its last bear cycle, where we kind of rally up, get a fake out, retest the range support, and then we end up going back up into new all-time highs. And so now that we're actually retesting, we finished the retest of support, now that we're actually breaking back up, I do believe that the next move is going to be all the way up here at about 14,000 Satoshis. And from here we would expect to see some type of a pullback, but I think it ultimately just is going to take us even further into this uptrend. And so I think that this is one of the better looking alts out there. It had one of the better sustained uptrends inside of all of the BTC pairs. I've never seen an altcoin really look this good on a BTC pair. And so now that we've finished our first major correction, this to me looks like the first sell-off, and the next one coming is going to be kind of a similar move to what we saw right here, this big blow off top, except it's going to happen in a much greater way. So this is one of the better looking altcoins out there. I'm really excited for Link. I believe it's going to be outperforming Bitcoin. I believe it's going to be outperforming Ethereum. And at the end of the day, we did see Chainlink, have one of the bigger shakeouts out of the rest of the altcoins. And so now we're at the point where we're actually breaking out. We've pretty much erased the majority of this sell-off at this point. I believe that this getting ready for wave 5, if we drop this to a log chart before we wrap up this video today, let's kind of talk about the long-term projection for Chainlink. Because as it stands right now, the way that the wave count goes for Link is wave 1, and then this entire move all the way up to, $60 approximately was wave 3, right? And so the next one coming for Chainlink is actually going to be wave 5. Now, because we saw such a big shakeout, this is oftentimes what you're going to see before that final 5-wave blow off top. You're going to see one big shakeout, one big sell-off that really shakes out all the weak hands, and that's what takes us to that final parabolic rally in the cycle. This has seen one of the greater rises out of all of the altcoins. Very sustained uptrend for a significant period of time. Now that we had this shakeout that took us all the way back down here to approximately $13, I believe that this is going to be taking us into that final blow off top. $100 is my likely target. I think that that's a no-brainer. I do believe we're going to hit that for sure. Now, the question is, will we see potentially $200, $250? I pinpointed the idea that we could see a $300 Chainlink, and I still definitely think that's possible, guys. Chainlink is still the reason DeFi exists, and I think a lot of people forgot about that. I know a lot of smart money hasn't, but with all of this new coins that have been popping off, providing great returns, most people forgot about Chainlink, the whole reason all of this started in the first place. And so because of that, I do believe that we could see Chainlink continue to cement itself as one of the top earning cryptos, really start taking a lot of that market share back into its own market cap, and see this thing really take off to some high levels that most people aren't expecting. In my opinion, we have seen some quick impulses inside of Chainlink. This was a quick impulse, but it immediately pulled back. This was a quick impulse, but once again, it immediately pulled back. This was a pretty quick impulse, but it once again immediately pulled back as well. Now that we're at the wave 5 and the most euphoric part of the cycle, I do strongly believe that we could see Chainlink, kind of make one of these types of moves, but much, much bigger in scale, something that we have yet to see up to this point. This isn't a blow-off top. None of these are really blow-off tops in my opinion. Yes, we got a quick impulse and then a big pullback, but they're not necessarily blow-off top material. A blow-off top is something where everything just goes completely vertical, right? It's kind of like this. How if we come in here and look at the final rallies in each of these, let's go all the way to the first one here. This is the final rally inside of this cycle, where everything just goes pretty much straight up and down, vertical, right? This was the same thing here. Notice how it uptrends, we get our first breakout, and then it just goes vertical here. That's the same thing. That is what you would expect to see inside of a blow-off top. Now, this one really didn't even see one throughout this entire period. There was a lot of profit taking going on here. But I do think that with this being the final 5 of the 5, the very big blow-off top to close out the run, we're going to see the same type of price action where it literally just goes vertical. So once again, guys, time frames are going to be king. That's the only way we're going to really know where this thing's going to top out at. This thing's going to go so parabolic so quickly that it's impossible to truly know and just pick a price and say that's the top. This is for sure. Because when you don't see pullbacks and it just keeps going higher, you really have no basis to go off of, especially in price discovery. So now that we're at this point, once again, guys, I'm going to be targeting the end of the year. We're getting very close to that time. We only got a few months left before we hit that. I believe Chainlink is going to once again assert itself as being one of those big market leaders, which is why I wanted to cover it today. We're seeing a nice buyback that's happening over the last 24 hours for Chainlink. This is to be expected with the ETH BTC. With the Link BTC chart breaking out, it's also outperforming against Ethereum. I think that this is going to be something that continues over the next couple months, and we should continue to see Chainlink being that big leader that it has been. People kind of forgot about it over the last year or so. I believe that this is going to change. I think it's really undervalued when you look at some of the other peers amongst it inside of the market cap. It's only got, I think, maybe 15 billion in market cap, which comparing that to the likes of Cardano, comparing it to some of these others, I think that that's way undervalued for what the potential of Chainlink really brings with DeFi. So with that being said, guys, this is the video I had for you. If you found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, links are in the description. For the people that want to download my free ebook and study guide, links are also in the description for that. Guys, one quick final thought before we wrap up this video. You guys can also tune in to my live webinar. It's free in the description as well. Or if you guys would like to join my video course in Signals and the new beginner course that I have, all of that is actually going to be 50% off for the rest of this month. So if you guys want to get into my group, I'm giving you guys a great opportunity to get in before the whole cycle ends, knowing what I'm doing with my profit, where I'm taking profits, what I'm moving profits into, aside from the profitable signals that we've already been nailing inside of there. This is really where you're going to find the most value in my group over the next 4 months. A lot of people have been asking me, is it still worth it to get in with the bull cycle almost being over? And I do believe it is. There's even more profitable signals that happened in the last 4 months. On top of that, knowing what I'm doing with my profits is going to be the most important strategy because you want to make sure that you're protecting your capital long term. So follow that. Links are in the description to go ahead and sign up. Thank you guys so much for watching. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.